In this video, the ultimate guide to starting an Airbnb business in Portugal. Whether you're dreaming of hosting in Lisbon's historic streets, the Algarve sunny beaches, or a quiet spot like Lourdes, this video's got you covered. Portugal is a hotspot for travelers and investors, and Airbnb is booming here. But there's a lot to know before you jump in. We're going to walk through why Portugal is perfect for this, the legal steps, costs, tips for success, and the latest updates as of 2025. It's a big one, so grab a pastel de nata and let's get started. First off, why Portugal? This country's really got it all for an Airbnb business. It's on the western edge of Europe with over 24 million tourists in 2023 alone. Think history buffs in Sintra, surfers in Nazaré, and city explorers in Porto. The climate's a dream. Mediterranean vibes with hot summers around 28 to 30 degrees Celsius and mild winters at 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. So guests come year round. Living costs are low, about 30 to 40% less than France or the UK, and property prices are still reasonable compared to Western Europe. A two-bedroom in Lisbon might run 300,000 euros, but head to Lourdes or Coimbra and you're looking at 150 to 200k. Plus, Portugal is very safe, stable, and English-friendly, and there's huge perks for hosts dealing with international guests. Airbnb is massive here too. In 2023, guests spent $2.4 billion through the platform, supporting 55,000 jobs. Occupancy rates in tourist zones like Lisbon and the Algarve hit 70 to 85%, and average nightly rates range from 80 euros in the cities to 150 euros per night in peak coastal seasons. But it's not just the big names. Smaller spots like Évora or the Douro Valley are picking up steam as travelers seek unique stays. The catch is that regulators have tightened since the housing crisis, so you've got to play it smart. Let's break it down. So step one is pick your location. Lisbon is the heavy hitter with tons of demand, rates around 180 to 120 a night for a decent apartment. But it's competitive, and some of the neighborhoods like Alfama are quote-unquote containment zones where new licenses are tricky. Porto's another gem. It's vibrant, it's cheaper than Lisbon, and rates are still good, but it's a bit quiet off-season. And then there's also quiet spots like Lourdes near Lisbon's airport where you can get like 40 to 60 a night, targeting budget travelers or layover guests. Research occupancy and rates with tools like AirDNA say that Lisbon might pull 85% occupancy while Lourdes is closer to 70%. So you just got to match your budget and vibe, like urban buzz, rural charm. There's the Alentejo, the Algarve. There's so many different beach areas in Portugal, Peniche, Ericeira, mountain towns. So there's a little bit of everything all around the country. The next step is to snag a property. You can buy or rent, but either way, you need permission. So if you're buying, Portugal's market is still accessible. A one-bedroom in Porto's outskirts might cost 120,000 euros, while a fixer-upper in the Alentejo could be 80k. Mortgages are common. Banks like Caixa Geral offer 70 to 80% financing at 2 to 3% interest rates for residents. Renting is trickier. You need landlord approval for short-term rental, and leases run $700 to $1,000 a month in cities less than smaller towns. So this isn't the best country for doing the sublet arbitrage stuff, but if you can buy a place, especially like a standalone building or house, so you don't have to deal with building rules in someone else's building or a shared building, then you should be good to go. There are condo rules in certain places, and since 2024, condo associations can ban Airbnb with a majority vote if neighbors complain about noise or traffic, so keep that in mind. Now let's go a bit deeper on the legal stuff. So what you need to get is called the Alojamento Local license, or the AL. This is non-negotiable across Portugal, whether you're in Lisbon or in a little village. You'll register with your local municipality, say Câmara Municipal, and what you need is your NIF tax number, proof of ownership, a copy of the deed, and a layout showing you the bedrooms and exits. Safety is key too. You'll install a fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, first aid kit, emergency contact sign. You can file it online via the Balsão Único Eletrónico or in person, and it takes about 20 days for approval. Costs $25 to $50 depending on the council. And then once you've got your AL number, you're legal. Airbnb won't list you without it. Taxes come next. Portugal has a tourist tax of €1 to €2 per night per guest, up to 7 nights, depending on the city. Lisbon's €2, smaller towns might be €1, and Airbnb usually collects it for you. Income tax depends on your setup. If you're a resident running it as a side gig, short-term rental income gets taxed at 15% under the simplified regime. Just declare it by June 30th. Non-residents pay 25% flat tax, no deductions. And big earners can opt for full accounting at the 28% corporate rate, but with write-offs like utilities or furniture. Pro tip, hire a local accountant. $200 to $500 a year saves massive headaches. And if you need help finding an accountant, there's a link in the description where you can book a call with MyLatinLife, become our client. And we got a whole list of accountants, lawyers, real estate agents, everything that you need in Portugal. Costs add up, so let's crunch some of these numbers. So, this can range, but what you want to aim for is at a very minimum 50 to 60% occupancy on your place, and then sort of do the math from there, your nightly rate, what you need to be profitable, covering the mortgage, the utilities, the internet, the insurance, the first year setup, and any sort of outlay of capex that you need to buy, a fridge or different things like that. Okay. And then once you've crunched the numbers, everything makes sense, then you're going to be setting up your listing, and that's kind of where the fun starts. So Airbnb is free, obviously. You upload the photos, you set your price, and you go. Pro photos might cost $200 for the session, but they really boost bookings. And stats show they lift views 40%. Write a killer description. Highlight the perks like Wi-Fi, parking, proximity to beaches. You can price dynamically. You can add a guidebook. And guests really love any kind of personal touch. Now, there's some rules to watch. So there's no caps on rental days outside containment zones. Lisbon has a particular rule of 120 days per year. So that's something you need to be aware of in Lisbon and in other containment zones. So you need to identify, is this property that you're looking at, is it in a containment zone or not? Also, as we mentioned, condos can block you. So check your bylaws or face a shutdown. Guests need ID under Portugal's SEF rules. Airbnb handles the reporting. You might get noise complaints, and councils can fine €500 or revoke your AL if it's a chronic issue with noise or complaints. And as we've talked about, the EU's implementing these new data sharing rules in 2026, where the platforms will report to the cities monthly, so make sure you stay compliant. Here's some tips to win. So target niches like remote workers with desks, families with extra beds. Offer discounts for weekly stays, bigger discounts for monthly stays. Aim to get superhost status with a high response rate and high reviews, right? And that'll unlock perks like higher visibility. Okay? You can play up potential access to airports or train stations, transportation, beaches, whatever you got going on, because the logistics are very important. And reinvest early profits, right? Like invest in a better mattress, better pillows, things like that. And that'll help get your ratings even higher. The latest updates as of March 2025, Portugal's Construir Portugal plan softened the Mais Habitação crackdown. New AL licenses are back in most areas, and over 5,000 of these licenses were issued in 2024 after the freeze. The CEAL tax on short-term rentals might drop by 2026, which could be interesting. And construction is up as well, which is easing housing pressure, so regulators are less antsy about Airbnb. Still, Lisbon and Porto can limit licenses if rents spike, so watch the local news. Risks could be seasonality. The Algarve is absolutely dead in the winter. Lourdes, basically like anywhere near Lisbon, is more solid. Competition can be fierce with over 100,000 listings nationwide. Housing backlash is growing, even still, where protests hit Lisbon in 2024 with the sort of narrative of that tenants should be preferred over tourists, right? Which makes sense, but it's something to keep in mind, a dynamic. And you want to diversify, right? So maybe mix Airbnb with long-term if the rules tighten. So that's something to consider if you have maybe like a multi-unit property. It's like maybe get a mix of long-term, a mix of Airbnb, and just see what works best. They typically say with Airbnb, like try to get a place that would make sense if rented long-term. So you're not 100% dependent on Airbnb to not be underwater on the property. So that's your ultimate guide to Portugal. The Airbnb game is super hot with affordable properties. AL licenses are coming out, no problem. The tourists are flooding in. And it's a mostly welcoming setup. Speaking of setup, you're going to need a bank account and a NIF, which is the Portuguese tax ID, to make this happen. MyLatinLife, we have a service where we can get you a Portuguese bank account and NIF 100% remotely. You don't even have to be, a European citizen or whatever. If you're American, Canadian watching this, we can get you a Portuguese tax number and bank account 100% remotely. There's going to be a link in the description to book a call with us, become our client, and we can start making this happen in terms of getting the bank account, the NIF, hooking you up with accountants, lawyers, real estate agents, whatever you need to make this Airbnb dream in Portugal a reality. Cool. So don't forget to like this video if this was helpful, subscribe, hit the bell for more videos about citizenship, residency, investment, real estate, Portugal, Latin America, Southern Europe, and we'll see you in the next video.